It's my honor to introduce Haven Pierce, an assistant professor of landscape architecture at UC Davis, and Kevin Perry, principal of urban rain designs. Take it away, team.
And I'm going to start talking about the maintenance. So in terms of maintenance, right, the big question is who's doing the maintenance? Is it you? Are you the person who's going to be out there? And do you have that commitment, which is awesome if you do? I would say, you know, especially now during the pandemic, I am doing more maintenance in my garden than I've ever done in my life, because this has been an amazing respite for me and just like a way to get outside. So, you know, if you are, it's you, gear up, get ready. Maintenance is a fun thing. But you have to be prepared for it because there will be some. Or do you have a maintenance crew? Is there someone that you're going to be hiring? So thinking about who is doing the maintenance work, and who is going to be there and ready to tackle issues if you've got floating mulch. And that's a concern. Thinking about on the days that you're going to be doing the maintenance, like, would today be a good day for maintenance? Looking at this photo, probably not. Right? Probably want to wait a little bit, assess, you know, what happens after this rain is overflowed, sunk in a little bit, and then go from there. Next slide. So some of the more common maintenance activities and issues, and I'll just go through them quickly as we keep moving through, but I mean, we're talking about mostly it's weeding, mulching around plants because mulch will get moved around. Plant trimming, so cutting things back, removing leaves and debris. We don't have any pictures, but garbage gets in rain gardens. And so you will see, especially if it's a front yard and there are things blowing away, you'll see garbage in there. And so that's something that you want to like pull out. Thinking about plants and their coverage and health and the irrigation. And then this is the photo documentation coming up. Okay, next slide. So hand weeding. Have you ever seen such diligent students? Look at them, they are so excited to be weeding. I have a friend who talks about bonus weeding days, and she thinks that by saying the word bonus, people are gonna suddenly get excited and wanna weed. But it's not a bad thing. Again, in times of pandemic, weeding can be so meditative. It's such a good thing. You can zone out, you can just sit there and really like kind of embrace your inner introvert and just kind of pull out those weeds and enjoy it. So hand weeding is going to be the best way to deal with your rain garden. See, that's me on the left-hand side. We've got, you know, a little bridge that we constructed, and I'm pulling out all sorts of dandelions. So enjoy it, do it well, but like it's your way to get outside. So hand weeding, best way to get the weeds. Next slide. And then mulch replacement, because as I said, that mulch, what we want it to do is it breaks down, right? And it's starting to like become a little bit of compost and actually work its way into the soil and be a good thing. And so after a time, you'll see, especially if there are areas where you're walking around a lot or your dog is maybe walking, those are areas where you're going to want to replace the mulch. So just kind of on a regular basis, look, do you need to add mulch? Go back in, and every couple of years, usually, you're going to want to add a layer of mulch. Next slide. And then plant trimming. So it depends on the plants that you're using, and you know, you can look up the individual needs of each of these plants. But something like this is juncus here, and juncus is something that if it's really happy, it's going to get big, it's going to get floppy. Cutting it back is a great thing, and you can cut it back down to, I don't know, 4 to 6 inches and do really well. Same thing, they're actually deadheading the California fuchsia and going through and picking off those spent blooms. Next slide is some more, I think, cutting back. So, you know, with the Gaillardia here on the left-hand side, see all of those spent blooms? That's another, just pop them off with your fingers, and the more that you deadhead, the more that you take off, the more blooms you're going to get. And on the right are some deer grass. And so the trick with deer grass is when they look great, they look fantastic. And when they don't and they start to get thatchy and gross, cut them back. So typically it's every 2 years. That you're just going to want to cut them all the way down to the ground, you know, so they just form these little mounds, and then they'll come back and they'll be super happy and they'll do so well, and they'll still like provide the habitat that you want and do all these amazing things. But these are the trimming and knowing when that happens. Leaf removal is going to be another one, right? You don't want that thick, soggy layer of leaves in your rain garden, because that encourages all sorts of mold, and it can actually, and disease, and it can actually affect your plants. So a little fall raking, always a good thing. Next slide. And then here are some more people hand removing. And then for plant coverage and health. So this is where you want to gauge, how are your plants doing? Are they thriving? Are they doing what you hope they are? And the experimental ones that you tried, how are they doing? You know, there may be some that didn't do so well, that you were like, oh, I bet they can take that inundation in the bottom, and they just couldn't. So do you need to replace plants, and how are they looking? Next slide. And then the other big one is irrigation monitoring and repair, because inevitably, and I mean, it happens to me all the time, I'm adding a new plant, I'm digging, and shovel goes right into that drip irrigation. And so I spring a leak, break it open, and the key is, you know, easy fix, right? You just get a little quick coupler and you can fix it, but you need to check, and you want to make sure that you're not leaking water and losing water into your soil when you've put in this rain garden and you've done drip irrigation and drought tolerant plants. You don't want a big irrigation leak. So just checking on that all the time, or when you're doing maintenance. Next slide. Replacing the plants. So in the one on the right, you can see this is one of those test areas where I think it was Lomandra lime tuff that we tried down at the bottom of the swale. And if you saw one of the earlier slides when I was talking about, you know, that big rain before we wanted to go maintain, they didn't do so well with the inundation of the rain. So lesson learned, we're not going to use it, but they did well on the slopes. But now we have to come up with, what are we going to replace it with? You know, are we going to try some California fuchsia or what? But it's, for us, I think it's a great thing. Now we, you know, we've learned from our failures. And then that was the slide that I really wanted. Photo document your rain garden. I mean, look at Kevin there. He is just so intent on getting that perfect picture. So really just follow, take lots and lots of pictures. Notice how you slipped over that slide quickly. Anyway, maintenance schedules. So what really, really important to think about maintenance. This is not one of these things where it's, you know, photographed, installed, and forgotten. You really want to think about. So all of these we've kind of gone through, the different kinds of pruning, replacement, and then the next two slides, if you want to just show those quickly. These are maintenance schedules or plans that I put together for a client. And so kind of by plant, but also by season, and going through and talking about, you know, what you need to do when and what to expect.